Hi, my name is Nicholas McCollum, and the title of my research is Peeking into Diverse Closets, an analysis of the effects of race, ethnicity, and religiosity on one's level of outness. Introduction. Disclosure, a term used to describe when an individual begins to feel comfortable enough to reveal their sexual identity to others. This is a complicated process. Aranda, Matthews, Hughes, Miramatsu, and Wilsnack 2014 state that disclosure can also be viewed as an outcome, the point on the continuum when an individual has self-identified as a sexual minority and discloses this to others. So what exactly impacts the process? The process can be impacted in various ways by social factors such as age, race, ethnicity, location, religious and/or political affiliation, and so on. Race ethnicity, for example, coupled with sexual minority status, can alter one's level of outness to others such as friends, family, and other social institutions. Outness refers to the extent to which queer and trans people disclose their sexual and/or gender identity to others. Religious affiliation, similar to race ethnicity, can alter one's level of outness because of the internal battle between identities. Ultimately, it is my goal for this research to determine if there is a significant relationship between level of outness and race ethnicity and level of outness with religiosity. The literature review. Research describes the coming out process or disclosure as dependent on multiple factors such as location, age, race, ethnicity, and gender, to name a few. The current literature suggests that white LGBT people are likely to have higher levels of outness than their Black and Latino counterparts because this is their most marginalized identity. Pastrana Jr. 2016 claims that for Black LGBT people, the family is a source of strength. However, in cultures that do not place values on individualism, expectations of being out are culturally inappropriate and carry greater risk for those who depend on their families. In Latinx culture, Eaton et al. 2017 states that queer Latino men may also describe their coming out in relation to Latino male gender role norms such as machismo. Machismo is this idea that there is a sense of hypermasculinity and a dominance over females. Depending on the religious environment, level of outness for LGBT individuals varies depending on how accepting their religious groups are. For my methodology, I used the Project STRIDE dataset from 2004 to 2005 provided by the Resource Center for Minority Data. Sample size was 524 lesbian, gay, bisexual individuals with 367 valid and 157 missing. The location was New York City, and my sample composition was 127 white, 117 Latino, and 123 Black. My dependent variable was outness, and this was the variables for this was CLO1 through CLO5. And CLO1 through CLO5, which in order were variables that address levels of outness to family, LGBT friends, straight friends, coworkers, and healthcare professionals. My independent variables were RELGRP. And this was for religiosity. This was the best variable I had, and it was quite limiting, but this was for religious group attendance, if the participants attended any religious social groups. And then for race ethnicity, I used ethnic, and this was basically just for whites, Blacks, and Latinos. For my methodology, I used an analysis of variance, ANOVA, which compared the mean levels of outness for Blacks, whites, and Latinos. And then on top of that, I also did a 2-keys test, which compared the mean levels of outness among any two races. So Blacks and whites, Blacks and Latinos, and whites and Latinos. And then it also gave me the significance of that relationship. And then I also did 3 independent sample t-tests. These independent sample t-tests showed me if there was a significant relationship between religiosity and one's level of outness for white, Black, and Latino participants. Thus, my research hypotheses were A, there is a significant relationship between race, ethnicity, and level of outness, and B, there is a significant relationship between religiosity and level of outness. The null hypotheses were A, there is no significant relationship between race, ethnicity, and level of outness, and B, there is no significant relationship between religiosity and level of outness. The results. Table 1, ANOVA, shows the mean level of outness for white, Black, and Latino individuals. With a valid sample size of 367, the mean level of outness for whites, 17.59, in this sample was higher than that of Black, 16.20, and Latino, 16.50 individuals, meaning that whites had higher levels of outness compared to their Black and Latino counterparts. Table 2 shows the two keys test, and this was a comparison of outness and race. And for whites and Blacks, there was a 1.39 unit difference between mean levels of outness. For whites and Latinos, there was a 1.09 mean difference between levels of outness, and Latinos and Blacks, there was a 0.292 mean difference for level of outness. And there was significance at 0.004 for between whites and Blacks, and there was a significance for whites and Latinos at 0.036. This just meant that between whites and Blacks and whites and Latinos, there was a significant difference between the means of outness. And thus, we accept the research hypothesis and we reject the null hypothesis. The research hypothesis being that there is a significant relationship between level of outness and race ethnicity, and the null hypothesis being that there is no significant relationship between level of outness and race ethnicity. Contrary to the literature, tables 3 through 5 compared outness and religious group attendance for white, Black, and Latino individuals and yielded no significant relationships, as P was greater than 0.05. The mean difference in outness for those that do and do not attend religious social groups are similar in levels across all three races. All participants were just as likely to be out if they attended religious social groups and if they did not attend religious social groups. It is important to note, however, that 250 of the participants did not attend religious social groups compared to 117 that did. Thus, we reject the research hypothesis that there is a significant relationship between religiosity and level of outness, and accept a null hypothesis that there is not a significant relationship between level of outness and religiosity. Thus, my conclusion. The purpose of this paper was to determine what social factors play a role in in determinants of sexual identity disclosure or level of outness to friends, family, etc. for LGBT individuals. I focused on race, ethnicity, and religiosity as they seemed to be the most prominent factors. I conducted analyses for outness by race, ethnicity, and religiosity. Using the Project STRIDE dataset and sample size of 524 with 367 valid responses, I ran the analysis of variance to determine the mean levels of outness for whites, Blacks, and Latinos. I then ran a two-keys test to compare the mean levels of outness between races. I found that there was a significant relationship between whites and Blacks and whites and Latinos for mean levels of outness, while there was no significant relationship between Blacks and Latinos as far as mean levels of outness. Thus, the null hypothesis was rejected and the research hypothesis was accepted. Now, to determine if religious group attendance was significantly correlated with level of outness, I ran 3 independent sample t-tests. I found that religious social group attendance was not significantly associated with levels of outness for any of the races/ethnicities. And so the null hypothesis was retained and the research hypothesis was rejected in this case. Taken together, I have found that there is a significant relationship between level of outness and race ethnicity, but there is not a significant relationship between level of outness and religiosity. Overall, this research was representative of LGBT people in urban America. However, future research needs to use a more diverse sample. I recommend gathering data from both urban, rural, and suburban areas and comparing the results for each. And then I also suggest that the future researchers obtain a religiosity variable similar to my level of outness variable so we can get a good scale of how religious people feel, like level of religiosity. And that being said, thank you for taking the time to view my presentation. I appreciate it.